I'm really happy to be here. I speak about digitalization and about innovation many, many times, but very few times I speak at organizations that are actually digitalizing and are doing the right thing. So I'm really, really happy to be here. I saw some of the demos earlier today, and they look amazing. It's incredible what the bank has done. So congratulations. When you look at that picture, what do you see? Do you see wiry cables in the future, or do you see something else? It's actually a tree. But at first sight, people think that there are a bunch of cables all twisted because it says digitalization. Yeah? It's a funny thing what the eyes can do. I know that right now, digitalization and the future, they feel like they're everywhere and they're accelerating. Yeah? I myself have been working in tech solidly for about 20 years. And I've been a pioneer in many, many industries simply because I was there at the beginning. And I have to tell you, everything starts with a small thing. Okay? And innovation is a path, it's a decision that you take consciously to jump on that wagon. It doesn't happen overnight. Innovation doesn't come like the Holy Spirit into your head. You decide to say, I'm going to change things. It's conscious, yeah? And that sentence is a beautiful sentence that explains how innovation begins. It begins with a small thing. It's actually a picture from a film, Lawrence of Arabia. And why it's significant is because in that film, which is based in the life of T.S. Lawrence, the protagonist feels that he doesn't fit in, that he doesn't connect with his British Army colleagues, and he ventures into the desert, not knowing what's going to be there, and he bumps into these Bedouin tribes that eventually help win the war. Okay? And that's how technology began. Okay, I remember back in '96, everybody was texting each other, right? But they were texting each other for free. And in the UK, actually, we all texted each other for free, SMS, because it took 2 years for Vodafone to actually create billing systems. They never expected people to use the text on the phone. And then look at the revolution. The revolution was such that when the first iPhone was launched, I don't know if you remember, but it didn't come with SMS. Because in the US, nobody was SMSing anybody. And then the rest of us in Europe and in Asia, we were like, what are you thinking, Steve Jobs? That was the amount of the SMS that the world did. Now, the same sentence appears in another futuristic film. And this film is by Ridley Scott. But in this film, the one that doesn't fit in is an android. It's an android called David, and he's played by Michael Fassbender. And in the film, just to make like a little tricky, geeky thing into T.S. Lawrence, he watches Lawrence of Arabia all the time. He imitates Peter O'Toole's voice. He even dyes his hair blonde. And he doesn't fit in because the humans, even though he looks like a human being, treat him like a robot, and he doesn't like it. So he brings on board that virus that eventually will kill all the humans in the spaceship. And this is the questions that I get asked all the time because I work in artificial intelligence, and I have partly worked in robotics. I'm more on the software side. Are the robots going to kill us? Or what is society going to look like if we continue to machine learn and to digitalize and to let a bunch of software programs run the world? Well, in April 1993, I was a quant analyst at Goldman in Zurich, and we got that fax. Can you guess what it is? It's the release of the HTML code and basically the release of the World Wide Web. Now, funny enough, it's not signed by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the prince of digital magic. It's actually signed by the director of research and the bureaucrats. Because the CERN released it to organizations that were already working with them, but released it with kind of like legalese, like these are the servers, these are all the files, this is where the code is stored. And by the way, if you use it and something goes wrong, we have nothing to do with this. It was about, we have nothing to do with this if something goes wrong, as opposed to, and the world is going to change. Nobody knew that. Nobody could predict the digitalization tsunami in 1993. Otherwise, the CERN would have thrown a huge party, don't you think? We invented the World Wide Web. No, it was a fax, 2 pages fax. Nobody can predict what is happening right now. And one of the reasons why we can't predict it is because nobody understands what is happening in the sense of how it occurs. So the first thing that we get asked, people in the scientific community, like, tell us, how does it feel so horrible? Like, we feel like overwhelmed. Well, the comfort zones are gone. So the normal business is about disruption. Disruption is the new normal. The steady, stable environments, they're not there. Every day is about challenges and changing, challenges and changing. And there are many, many organizations that are unable to cope with this, but that's the name of the theme. Digitalization, innovation is about disrupting. In Silicon Valley, investors invest in companies that are going to be disruptive. And in the rest of the world, disruption is something negative, but in the Valley, it's like, yes, that's what we want, people that change things. Yeah, remember T.S. Lawrence? I feel this is not right. I'm going to go out there and do something crazy, like venturing into the desert, okay? Now, why does it feel that innovation and digitalization are like happening overnight? You know, remember how things were in 2011 and now 2016, the jump that everything took? Why does it feel that things are happening all of a sudden? Because that's the velocity of innovation. Innovation doesn't grow at a linear speed, which is like 1 + 1, 2, 2 + 1 is 3. It actually goes by exponential growth. Of course, when the growth is tiny, when you multiply 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16, it's very flat. But 16 times 16 is 256. Yeah, that was probably 2013. And 256 times 256, you know how much that is? It's about 65,000. We're almost vertical. This is where we are today. We went from 256 to 65,000. That's why it feels that so much is happening, because the velocity is exponential. So in the 21st century, we will not experience like 100 years of progress. It's going to feel like 20,000 years of progress at the speed of progress that we have right now. And now that we understand the velocity, let's see what happens to the underlying, which is technology. You remember the film Back to the Future? So Michael J. Fox jumps from 1985 back to 1951. And if you remember the film, he doesn't quite look that different. So he's wearing jeans and he's wearing trainers and he has a skateboard. That was a weird thing, yeah? But he doesn't look that much far out from the other younger kids. Now, if you take one of us in 2017 and you move it back to 1985, we're a bunch of weirdos. We can't live without Spotify and Facebook and, like, imagine the jump. Like, our lives are so much different. And why? Remember the speed? Because of the speed, yeah? So what we are calculating is that because of this law, the law of accelerated returns, which is based in, if you're a super advanced corporation with a lot of innovation, every year you innovate at a higher multiple than another company with less innovation. because if the underlying is advanced, you triple your multiple, yeah? So the third thing that happens is something to do with why software is ruling the world. There was an investor in Silicon Valley that said in 2011, software is eating the world, yeah? And what it meant was that if you are a company or a business and you don't make software part of your core, you're out, okay? Look at Uber. You know, everybody's taking the world by creating a digital product, okay? Now, we in the scientific community, because we live in where the software is created, we know that, but what matters to us is who's running the restaurant? Who is going to lead the innovation in a way that society continues to evolve, made for humans to live happy, as opposed to the robots are going to kill us, yeah? There are two camps. There are companies like Google and DARPA investing in the famous Boston Robotics. Have you seen those videos? Yeah, there's a company that Google invested with also Pentagon money, which is DARPA. And every now and then they release how these robots are evolving. And they're scary. They're scary because, first of all, they look scary. But second of all, because they're getting so much better. I've been following robotics for a long time. The hardest thing that that is to make a robot do, you know what it is? It's not thinking, it's actually moving. Moving and recovering. You know why recovering? Because the human brain is wired with a lot of DNA from our predecessors. So if someone pushes you, the brain says, you gotta go the opposite way, yeah? That's thinking. Well, the first video that this company released was about how these robots were being kicked by everybody in the office, and they kept on going. And I thought, oh my God, they've broken their recovery. This is crazy. So there's people like that are creating robots, and we don't have a clue what are they going to do with the robots. And also when Pentagon money is behind it, I know that it's not to build Lego homes. So when people say, are the Terminators coming? I'm like, yeah, I'm a bit concerned. And then there's other people like myself and Professor Hawking and many people at CERN, in which we believe that the way to keep society human and a place fit for humans to live is to create the products of the future with a lot of human creative into it. Yeah? Now, at the beginning, when I used to tell people that I used to work in innovation, I met other people that they claimed they worked in innovation, but they were running around with Star Trek job titles. You know, like those are real business cards. I actually met someone that was the head of Imagineering. Yeah? But that's no longer the case. I mean, the people that work in innovation is people like you. You work in innovation. I work in innovation. So the way to create innovation is by putting your people to use their right brain. The machines don't have brains. They are software programs. Humans have a software program side, which is the left brain. It works exactly like a computer. And then they have something that is extraordinary, the right brain. This is where all the creativity, the instinct, the imagination. Computers are very good at simulating. They're very bad at being human. That is what we need to do, putting creative people behind digital projects. And if you look around, at the same time of all this super techno digitalization is the mindfulness movement. How many of your friends are going to yoga and meditation class, and everybody now is kind of like because society is reacting to all the digital with right brain approaches. You see it? With right brain approaches. 5 years ago, if I was visiting like a startup accelerator or like a big startup, they would show me a room full of ping pong tables and beanbags, yeah? And now they show me a room where they do yoga. And I'm like, aren't you guys funky? You see, even the techno kids are going because that's how humans react to left brain stuff, yeah? So how are we going to keep society and the future and innovation? We're going to keep it human, not machine. We're going to keep it human, even if we use AI and algorithms. Well, that's one of the areas of my research, okay, to prove that the future can be right brain. So I work with Sony. Sony has a fantastic lab at Pinewood Studios, which is where the Star Wars film have been done, and Harry Potter and Dr. Spectre, you know, it's like I go there and I'm in heaven. And Sony is launching this year their famous 4X pixel screens. These are the most pixelated screens in the market. The cameras also shoot in 4X. So it's a major effort from Sony. So I'm going to show you something now. So in color theory, in pixel color theory, it's called RGB. If you look at those cheetahs, yeah, the left is how the camera with pixels produces the image. Now, because the camera doesn't know which way you're going to look, every single corner of this space has to be perfect, has to have the same light and the same quality of pixel. But look at where humans look. When humans look at an image, and that image has a face, we look at the face. We only look at the face. But when you look at the picture of the cheetahs, you see all of them, right? Yeah? Even though you think that you're seeing all of it. And that's because the rest of the body of the cheetah is reproduced by your mind, because your eyes are only looking at the face. Okay? This is the first example. The second example is when you look at a landscape, your eyes look at the background and the foreground. But actually, when you look, you only see one thing, right? You don't see two. But in fact, you're doing two at the same time. And that is what's called mental image. Okay. When I give you the third example, I will explain what mental image is. Right. Look at that RGB. RGB, red, green, and blue. You only need these three colors to produce all the other colors, including white. The yellow triangle is what, up until now, pixel cameras could reproduce. So they could reproduce greens, yellows, white, pink, magentas, yeah? Now, the famous 4X, quite a huge range of green, yeah? And then what is the blob? The blob is what the human eye can do. We still beat the pixel, yeah? Can you see the color brown anywhere? Can you see the color brown? No. And why can you not see it? Because pixels cannot produce the color brown, yeah? So then if you buy a TV and you go home and you watch a program about the jungles in Africa and you see a bunch of trees, how on earth can you see brown? Please tell me. Because we see with our mind. The brain sees the shape of the tree, says tree, tells you brown. That's how it happens. So we are not mechanical robots with cameras. Our right brain is an insanely yet to be discovered place in our body. We see with our minds. Okay, I just prove it to you. This is what Sony is doing. So next time you go home and you see some brown, you're seeing with your mind, kind of like the Matrix. Now, many companies that all of a sudden woke up and thought, my God, can we not be like Facebook? Look at that market capitalization. What are the tech companies doing What's the secret there? So many people approach innovation by wondering what makes tech companies innovative. And there is a theory in architecture that has to do with that. And the theory goes, in the past, not too long ago, architects thought that the place where you work has no effect in creating connections with people. Yeah? Architects build buildings, you put some furniture in them, and everybody goes. But that's not true. That's not true because, look at that. That is the building that Frank Lloyd Webber, a famous architect at the turn of the century in America, the guy who built the Guggenheim in New York, he was contacted by the Johnson family. Johnson is still a privately owned company. You know, they make all the aerosols. And they said, we want you to make us our new offices from scratch. And in 1937, imagine that, he builds them that. It looks like Rivendell in the Lord of the Rings. Okay? And also, let me tell you, the Johnson Company is not in a glamorous place like San Francisco in the States. They're in Milwaukee. In that state, you know, they do one thing and one thing only: cheese and milk. That's it. It's kind of, I don't know where you make cheese and milk in France, but imagine something like that going down there in the regions. Yeah? And I worked in a project in 2002 for the Johnson family, and they still have the same building. And why is it a place conducive to right brain creativity? Because of the height. When you go to a cathedral, don't you feel elevated? So high ceilings above you inspire, make your mind go into a different realm. And it worked. This company has innovated tremendously in every generation of the family. But it's not new. Around the same time, in the middle of the Second World War, the American government was obsessed with winning the war. So they went to technology universities like MIT, and they said, please put all your PhD engineers to work on what can we build to win this war. So they built that famous building, which was like barracks, the Building 20. And they chuck all kinds of people there. People that were working in lasers. Dear old Noam Chomsky, the poor man, was chucked in there as well. Nobody knew what to do with him. Oh, you can have an office there. Yeah? And they put it right in the center of campus. And because it was built very hurriedly and without too much structure, nobody could find their office. Everybody was lost. Like, oh, I'm so sorry, I thought it was my office. And what happened was that everyone began to share their projects with each other. When you cross-pollinate teams that work in different things and they exchange ideas, there is an upsurge of innovation, of inspiration, because ideas ignite other ideas, especially if they come from multidisciplinary backgrounds. And you can have a maze that everybody gets lost, or you can have a super duper building like Bell. The famous Bell, who later on became AT&T, was one of the most innovative companies in the world in telecoms. They invented many of the telecom things, radars. So again, famous architect gets hired, Eero Saarinen from Finland, and he builds them these phenomenal, very Bauhaus, very long lines into the future. And it wasn't a maze, it was like that. But again, if your office is at the end of the hall, you need to pass in front of everybody's office, and then one day you bump into them, and again the same conversation. Oh, what are you doing? And the thing that Bell did really well is that they mixed everybody. So not just the telecoms engineers, but they also the metallurgists, the guys that were like welding the software, okay, all the parts, and everybody was under the same roof mingling. So the space is conducive to innovation, which takes us back to today. When Mark Zuckerberg, after the IPO, purchased that enormous plot of land in Menlo Park, he got Frank Gehry, again, famous architect, to build him the Facebook office. And so Frank Gehry said yes. And then later on, when he was delivering the project, he said, I don't know why people hire architects and then tell them what to do. And my answer to that is that you never met Mark Zuckerberg, right? But anyway, now the world couldn't understand why on earth Mark Zuckerberg wanted the largest open plan office in the world. He has that. He's got the largest open plan office in the world. So the articles came through, but nobody was able to understand why. Look at that. Look at all the desks. They're not in straight lines, they're in semicircular, they're winding, people are marauding. And why is that? Because he wants people to collide and have conversations and have nice collaborations in very gentle ways. Yeah? And even the outside space, where all the shops and the restaurants and the famous Facebook hamburger shack, everything is inviting you to continue thinking about what you're doing. Can you see the subliminal messages? Hack, which is Facebook motto. Facebook motto is hack, break things, build them again. Yeah? It's like disruption, disruption. And when all this news came out, and I read The Guardian, I read everything, it was like, nobody's explaining it. Then the Huffington Post said, do you want to write an article and explain it? I'm like, sure I will. So I wrote it, and at the bottom of the article I said, of course now you believe that this is all palaver from a scientist, but in 12 months, this stock is going to go through the roof. And in fact, when I published the article, the second quarter results had just come, and Wall Street was not happy. Wall Street was like, the stock is overpriced. I don't think that this company is delivering. So the stock was about $70. 12 months later, 127. I should go back into trading. Yeah? So you can do that if you're a single company, or you can do what these people are doing, which is this $5 million building in Grand Rapids in Michigan, where 5 different companies, not competing with each other, a supermarket, a sneakers manufacturer, a parcel delivery company, they all took offices, yeah? Each one took a floor, but then what they did is they put all their creative people on the ground floor. And these are the rules. Anyone can take part in anybody's brainstorm session. Anyone can come into anybody's demo day or productization day. And within 12 months, the product ranges of each of the companies went through the roof, because their creative people from multidisciplines were working together. So the space is conducive to right brain thinking. Now, who knows this company? Who plays games? Nobody plays games? This is the company that ex-Microsoft engineers who made a lot of millions when Microsoft went IPO created. Of course, they were not going to work for the man. They were millionaires. But they said, let's do our own company with our own rules of how we engineers like to work. And this is what happens. The company, by the way, is the world-leading platform. If you have a game, you load it up into that platform. So when you get hired at Valve, you come through the main building in Seattle, and they give you a badge, and they give you that book, the Employee Handbook. And when you open the first page, it says, welcome to Valve. We're delighted to have you here, but you may have noticed that we haven't told you who your boss is, or what's your job title, or what you're going to be here. So take your badge, take that desk that has wheels on casters, and go around the organization and sit with all the different people working on the different projects. And when you find a project that you really love and you feel that this is the thing you want to do, take the wheels off and then start cracking on. This is the non-organization organization. Yeah? But it works. Imagine, they've been working since the famous 80s. Yeah? So what does that mean? Remember, disruption is the new normal? The structure of organizations on the innovation path has suffered tremendously. Look at Facebook compared to Google. You know how many products Google has done that have flopped? 50. Some of them, we've never heard of them, like exactly. Yeah? But they have tons of money because they still do one thing really well. Yeah? Links, ads. That's it. But look at Facebook. It's not a social network. It's now an advertising leader. It's now a human behavior massive intelligence database. It's planting internet in the third world. I think someone told me that they're issuing a credit card. It's going to be phenomenal. This company is not just a place to chat and talk about cats. And look at the structure of Apple. When Red Dot, aka Steve Jobs, went to heaven, what is happening to Apple? Have they really innovated? I don't think so. The iPhone 7 is like the iPhone 6, is like the iPhone 5S. Any new products? No. Yeah? So the structure of the people, where you put what you do with your people, the right brain individuals, it matters. It also forces you to look at your IP, at your intellectual property, at your assets. Like, what do we build here that we are the best in the world at building? When Kodak went bankrupt, Kodak was doing something very, very well. Film processing. But many companies that do something really, really well, they continue doing it really, really, really well. There's nothing wrong with how they do it. They're the best. It's only that people stop buying that. Yeah? That's the thing that they did. They didn't realize nobody was buying their products. And why? Because products have a life. It's what we call in product innovation, life cycles. You create the product, you launch it, you keep it up, everybody loves it, you go all the way up, your competitors react to it, and then you need to keep it up there. That's when creativity and innovation really need to come in place, okay? But sometimes you need to take it off the market. The iPod, after 10 years, was taken off the market last year, because now we have other stuff. Do you know this company? Well, this company is a leader in Asia in stem cell creams that specialize in protecting your skin against sun damage and photo emissions. It came out of Fujifilm because Fuji knew that we were all buying digital cameras, not films, and they went and looked at all their patents. And they thought, what can we do with all these patents about photon management, photon delivery? Creams. That company is turning billions. Fuji is now a cosmetics company. Yeah, talk about disruption. But why? Because someone, remember T.S. Lawrence, I'm going into the desert? Someone said, hey, what about creams? Anyone in your team, especially if you manage younger people, that raises their hands and says something, you gotta be happy. Because sometimes they're gonna be hitting the nail. Because they are producing right brain reactions. And there's nothing better than that. Nothing better than that. Creativity is at the core of innovation. And also one of my favorite musicians, the most prolific musician, the one that comes after is Madonna. but this man made 79 albums. He was also a great philosopher, and he was a radical person. And he says something really important. What matters in innovation is to have an eye on deviations, on anomalies. If you work in data analytics, what I do for a living is to look at deviations, at the weird patterns. I don't care about the whole volume in the center, that's fine. I like about the odd things in the boundaries, because this is where everything starts. The beginning of trends emerge from anomalies, yeah? And when it comes to data, which is the sexiest topic that everybody's talking about in the world, as if it didn't exist before, well, data is everywhere, it's been there forever, all kinds of data. But what matters is the one that needs to be analyzed, okay? Sometimes when I select data sets, I just choose very random data sets because I'm not going to choose the normal ones. Everybody's doing that. And normally this is where the insights come. So sometimes you don't need to analyze terabytes of data. It's about what type of data you choose. And it's very interesting because even the quant hedge funds, they're now admitting that if the markets are trading erratically and there's like some kind of non-quantifiable things, the algorithms don't know how to deal with it because there's nothing like a creative human brain to look at the markets. I'm not quoting myself, I'm quoting people in Wall Street. Okay? And there's something called overfitting. The algorithm takes off. The algorithm doesn't know if the data is good data, and it continues to create random assumptions that really are not important. Okay? And nothing is just one gear. Everybody is obsessed with machine learning. And I'm like, well, I've been doing a lot of other stuff all my life. There's all kinds of ways to mine and analyze data, just machine learning. Yeah, it's kind of like the tune of the year. And data, good data and insights is behind many of the products that we use. Not many people know this, but when you look at a Dyson vacuum cleaner, I worked on that Dyson vacuum cleaner project. Before that vacuum cleaner, the buckets were orange. They were dark. But Dyson in 2002 wanted a vacuum cleaner that the men were going to buy. We're going to make men buy vacuum cleaners. And that's why that vacuum cleaner looks like a Formula One engine. You know the one, yeah? So I remember being in the design team, and I said, well, I have a bunch of data that shows me that men, because I work in behavioral learning, men like quantifiable things, that a man will not move a finger if he doesn't quantify the end result of it. Like if you mow the grass, when you're done, you don't look at the grass like, oh, how beautiful. You open that and you say, check it out. So I said, let's make the bucket transparent. And there was a lot of argument like, oh, but it looks disgusting. No, but look, it's going to show how much it's sucking. So the first month that the vacuum cleaner went on sale at John Lewis in Oxford Street, 87% of the people buying it were men. Yeah? Data is everywhere. Nespresso is a project I worked last year in Brazil. So Nespresso, because they're doing so well, is the highest margin product you have at home. Welcome to being conned. I don't have one. I just cannot be conned by a company that charged me all that much for a pod. So because they're doing so well, they have the same identical branding and marketing rollout anywhere in the world. They arrive, they put the shop in the best luxury real estate of the city, and they make you believe that when you drink that coffee, you're in heaven. But they go on launch in Brazil, and things are not going well, and they can't understand it. So we went and we analyzed a bunch of consumer data, and we did a bunch of predictions and NLPs. And we found that there is a cultural clash in the brain assumptions. Brazilians, they go to the Nespresso shop. They're like, oh, Azteca Mexican, I love it. And then 2 weeks later, they arrive. It's like, what? I can't buy it anymore? Why are you so mean to me? You make me try it, and now you're not going to sell it to me? Why is that? Because their concept of happiness must happen every day. Every day, Brazilians must be happy. Happiness is like breathing. Whereas we, all suckers in the old continent, accept that sometimes I'm happy. So we accept limited edition. And it kills me. Like, what happened to all of us? Europe used to be fun. Yeah? So, of course, nobody likes the editions, the limited editions in Brazil, because they feel penalized. So, tiny, tiny things can revolutionize an entire product range. If you go back and you look at your products, don't think that you need to do some unsurmountable things. Sometimes one detail is what matters. Yeah? When I was a quant in the trading desk, I couldn't make sense of the Brazilian trading. Tell you, it's a really crazy country. And I'm like, this has no fundamentals. These guys are selling what people are saying, keep it. Like, what? Until I found out what was the motivation of the traders. Football scores. If the previous Sunday their team lost, massive sale Monday morning. Everybody is depressed. And then in the afternoon, they buy it again. And I built a pattern, and I started following the entire Premier League in Brazil just to make my model work really well. So sometimes it's something crazy. It's about what we call external data sets, something that has nothing to do with what you have inside, but something outside combined with yours is what clicks it. So don't just go crazy with machine learning. No, your data scientists are the ones that do the magic. They create the hypotheses, they choose the data sets, they create the assumptions. The software does all the work. Kind of like a vacuum cleaner. Not be mistaken. It's the people. And what do your clients want? Do you think information? I remember in my day, people used to say, information is king. Yeah? That was like in the Wall Street 80s. Information is king. No. What clients want is wisdom. When you read news, because everybody reads them on the mobiles, sometimes you forget, did you read that on Facebook or did you read it in The Guardian? Like, it's gone. Because it kind of everything looks the same and you don't know who to trust. Wisdom is the new gold. And what is coming over us? Yeah? Kind of like when Neo takes the red pill. Yeah? He didn't go back to Kansas. Well, you can kiss your keyboard goodbye. Start buying Amazon Alexas. It's really crazy magic. Alexa, play the Foo Fighters on Spotify. Doop. It works. Call me an Uber. It works. Of course, only geeks like me are using this thing right now. But in 3 years, believe you me, many of you will have one little device that is voice command connected to a bunch of other things in your house, and you'll go, Alexa this, Alexa that. It's happening. It's happening. I dare you. You will think of me in 3 years' time. The cars are going to drive by themselves. I'm really sorry. They are. Not next year. It's going to take a wider amount of time. But what will happen is because they don't need road signs. They only keep track of other vehicles. Therefore, they don't need to see a stop sign. Why stop if there's nothing coming? I'm just going to keep on going. The cities will change. Our cities will not have traffic lights. And also, your neighbors will call you crazy if you want to drive your car. Are you nuts? Let the car drive. It's kind of like now, like, are you going to buy a self-driving car? It will be the opposite, because everybody will trust the machine. And remember smart cities? Well, it's going to be connected cities. Cities will exchange data. Cities will collaborate digitally, exchange information that is valuable for each other. And of course, why can they do that? Because by then we will have the famous artificial general intelligence, which is when you really build a machine that kind of thinks like a brain. Right now, it's a bit of an impossibility because we are at the level of we can teach a machine to do an ANI, an artificial narrow intelligence, to do one thing and one thing only, but very well, but one thing. And some of the beginning of general intelligence, well, the intelligence of the machine is kind of like the village idiot. It's not too smart. It's going to take, you know how long? 25 years. It's not that long. But it will happen. It will happen. This is why we need to create a society where we only allow creativity. And that's why you need to increment your creative output. Start thinking creatively. Start doing things that sparkle that right brain. This is how you will perform better at work. This is how you will create much better digitalization. By allowing yourselves to always bring creative thoughts into the process. And thank you very much. I think we have time for questions if anybody has them. I can't see with these beams in my head, so someone needs to tell me.
What about in 50 years?
Well, in 50 years, nobody knows. Nobody knows because artificial general is calculated to appear around 2045, 2035. That's the big debacle. If we create machines that think like brains, one of the theories is, well, if the machine thinks like a machine, they will look at us and they'll decide that we're not worth keeping. Why? Because the machine would look at the antelopes and the elephants and the birds, who, by the way, take care of themselves, right? Anybody goes feeding them in Africa? No. They look after themselves. We are a billions population that needs feeding. So some part of the community says the robots will think straight and not keep us around, which is why we are trying to create artificial intelligence that continues to involve the creative side of a human into the whole 360 process. And that's the battle. I mean, it's intense. Bill Gates and Professor Hawking and Elon Musk are constantly, talking to the press, like we need to create a regulation that prevents organizations from going this other route that we cannot control. So there's no prediction. What happens after 2050 is crazy.
What do you think about BNP Paribas? Do you think it's a creative entity, or do you think being a French and a bank, which to me is like the opposite of creativity, can make something? And did you meet some creative guys because you have been hired to do this presentation? So you had talked, to guys from BNP Paribas. So do you feel we have this potential for creativity?
Well, I'll tell you what I got sent. I asked to see what this whole digital platform you created, yeah? I'm like, just tell me. And I haven't seen that much around in banks in London. I was impressed because platform is the way. Digital is the way. There are some banks in London that I still find mistakes on their damn online banking. And I call, I was like, hi, you know that the PDF doesn't print this and that? And like, who has built this for you, man? And they oppose digitalization because they think that the way they've done business all their lives is how they're going to keep it. So there are financial institutions that embrace digitalization from day one. And also the French have the famous Minitel heritage, you know? This is what we all say. Remember the French? I remember HP when they were like, what is this place in the mountains? There is a massive R&D center that many American companies had people there simply because of what the French engineers were creating. Okay? I am meeting a super duper fintech startup that has created, I'm just going to check it out, a quant hedge fund. It's called Walnut Algorithm. They won a bunch of awards, la-di-da. And one of their investors in London is like, go and meet the guys, they're really cool. I'm like, quant hedge fund, but there's a bunch of people doing that. Like, no, but these are psychedelic, so I'm going to meet all these super brains. There is an insane heritage of technology and engineering in this country. I'm not surprised that the bank has created the platform. So, yeah, I knew that already. Now, I haven't met who created it because I just arrived this morning, but I've seen the demos and I've seen what it is, and I haven't seen other banks doing it.